To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world. Thank you.
Come along, hop up here, and we'll go for a jolly ride. The open road, the dusty highway. Come, I'll show you the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, we direct your attention to high on the icy slopes of the Matterhorn.
Jungle Cruise Base, this is Branco Beauty. We have run aground just south of Manaus. All hands are fine. We will wait till the tides change. Over.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're listening to WDW Radio on your internet dial.
WDW Radio, your information station. Hello and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mongello, and this is show number 189 for the week of September 26th, 2010. I just returned from Destination D, the D23 event celebrating the 55th anniversary of Disneyland. This two-day event took guests on a journey through the design, creation, debut, and history of the world's first Disney theme park through presentations, panels, screenings, speakers, Disney legends, a scavenger hunt, and even a concert of memorable songs from the Disneyland Resort. On this week's roundtable, we'll recap the events, discussing our expectations, surprises, reviews, and memories. We'll then look towards what's coming next for D23 in Walt Disney World and at next year's Expo. I'll have a few announcements and then play more of your voicemails at the end of the show, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show.
Your attention, please. The Santa Fe and Disneyland passenger train, the E.P. Ripley, now loading on track number 1 for a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom. All aboard.
Are you 23? That's how it all got started. More than a year ago, out of nowhere, Disney asked that very cryptic question and immediately started a flurry of speculation on so many of the online Disney communities. And somewhere around March of 2009, Disney called together a conference and announced the creation of something unprecedented in the Disney community, D23, the first official Disney fan club. And followed up soon thereafter with the announcement of the first D23 Expo, which was going to be a 4-day gathering in Anaheim, California, of not just Disney fans, but the Disney company and community as a whole. And they brought together so many aspects and elements of the Disney company, from the parks and resorts to Radio Disney, the films, TV, and so much more, and really what was, for many of us, one of the highlights of our Disney experiences beyond the parks. Fast forward a little bit more, they held a number of events in Disneyland and Walt Disney World, celebrating the holidays and even their first-year anniversary earlier this year. Not too long ago, they surprised us when they announced that there would be no D23 Expo this year, and many, myself included, were disappointed at that news, but they did tell us of something that they called Destination D. And that was going to be a very different event, celebrating not just the D23 community, but also Disneyland's 55th anniversary at the Disneyland Resort. So from September 24th and 25th in 2010 at the Disneyland Hotel, they held Destination D. And I thought we're actually here in Disneyland right now at the last day of Destination D. Wanted to do a roundtable recap of the events, talk about everything that took place over the last few days. So I will go around the virtual roundtable, ask you to please, especially for the first person to my left, I ask, what's your name and where you're from?
Oh, jeez.
That's good enough.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. Why don't you introduce me, Luke?
This podcast is sponsored by Becky Mankin from MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, your official and authorized recommended travel provider, and of course, good friend and companion here for most of the Destination D events.
Especially Thursday. Yeah, we'll talk about that one, right?
Yeah, because Destination D for us kind of began the night before, and it's going to continue a little bit after.
Hello, Doug from Rhode Island.
Lee from Los Angeles.
Lori from Kentucky.
Jeremy from Utah.
And I'm Scott from Walt Disney World's backyard.
Show off. This is Disneyland. We're talking Disneyland. And, this, like I said, for me, the D23 Expo last year and the 4 days that encompassed all the different events, it was a whirlwind, but for me was one of the best things that I've done as part of sort of the Disney experience beyond the theme parks. And there was so much about it that we enjoyed, from the exhibits to the collectors forum to the relationships and the friendships that were made there. It was an amazing event, and I was very disappointed when I heard that it wasn't coming back this year, because as the expo ended last year, the mind was already racing about other things that we were going to do, because I had a table, just like you, Becky, next to me, sort of a one giant booth, as it were. And we so enjoyed it. We were already sort of starting to think of how we were going to plus it up this year.
Oh, absolutely. We walked out of that one. We were packing up the booth and going, okay, what do we do to make this exciting, as electric as it was for the first event? And we came up with some great ideas.
Now, Scott, you came. This is actually one of the first box events too. But you were sort of out of the box. You flew cross country. Actually, this was really sort of your home park. Did you sort of have that same feeling about the expo last year and some of that disappointment this year?
Absolutely, but when they surprised us with this Destination D, I was very excited, because this would be all about my favorite place, Disneyland. So I was super excited about that.
Yeah, and one of the big differences between the expo last year, because it was an expo with a show floor and a lot of different exhibits, was this was going to be much, much smaller. This was held at the Anaheim Convention Center. This was going to be in Disneyland's own hotel. But this was not going to be about all those aspects of the Disney company. This was going to be focused primarily on Disneyland, and again, not just celebrating the D23 fan community, but giving them a chance to get together and do some of the special things that D23 like to try and do in the past year and a half or so. And we saw some of the things like the first anniversary in Walt Disney World and some of the other special events, the dinners with Dave Smith and some of those Imagineer experiences. When you saw that it was going to be did anybody else come to the expo last year? Anybody else? No. Lee, now, well, this is kind of your backyard, so this was probably a no-brainer for you. Jeremy, you live in Utah. Was this something that you saw and was like, I've got to go?
The Destination D itself? Yes. I love Disneyland. This is my home park, so I definitely made sure I wanted to be to this presentation that they did.
And that's the other thing, too. This was not the same kind of thing. This really was a series of presentations. And I think what Disney did was they looked at some of the things that were so very popular from last year's event. They saw that things like the Legends ceremony and the Imagineering things, those were the ones that had the longest lines that people got shut out of. Miley Cyrus, Johnny Depp, Radio Disney, awesome. But these are the things that the D23, for lack of a better term, hardcore fans really wanted to see. Do you think you get the sense that they sort of wanted to pluck out some of those things that they felt were most popular and deliver that to the fans this year?
The interesting thing, even backing up a little bit, is remember when they announced Destination D, we had no idea what they were planning from the beginning, and we all kind of looked at it and went, we've got to go, just because the expo was so great. What could they possibly follow up with? So this is... It's its own animal. It's going to be hard to compare, but it was really a eclectic little mix of history and pieces that kind of drew you in once we finally saw what they were going to do with the event.
And that's a really good point, because it's very, very different, but they did say, okay, we're not doing the expo, but we've got something called Destination D. And we're like,
For months.
Right. We're like, but I got to go. I got to book it and see what it is. And they sort of released what the schedule of events was going to be very late. We knew that there was going to be things like the Weird Disney and the Legends and stuff like that, and I think that's why for a lot of us we said we have to go. For me, really, this was just in the interest of research.
Of course. And there's food involved somewhere.
Listen, I'm going to talk about my renewed love of Disneyland and its food and the introduction of corn dogs by Scott Otis. But yeah, and what they did was, sort of relatively close to when they put tickets up on sale is when they released an idea of some of the events that were coming, and then it wasn't until very, very recently that they really introduced the schedule of events. Were you guys sort of all early adopters of knowing that you wanted to come when you heard about Destination D, especially for the people that never came before, or did you wait and to see what was going to be here?
I actually came out for Becky's birthday World of Color dessert party. It just happened to be during Destination D, so...
But it's
I didn't come out
trip,
for
though.
it. Was my first trip, yes.
It's a great excuse because,
Right.
of course, with all of the fans that were here, and, of course, you've got such a love for Disney that it just kind of drew you, the whole ball of wax.
This is your first trip to Disneyland as well?
Correct, yep.
What about you?
Totally different experience. Kimberly Knight and I had decided very early on we were going to come, and we were actually sitting on the computer waiting for the clock to strike the magic time to order our tickets, and we got in and we're amazed.
Yeah, and that's the very interesting thing about some of the D23 events as a whole is how quickly they sell out, especially in Walt Disney World, where maybe some of the venues are a little bit smaller. I mean, the first anniversary event sold out almost immediately. What are some of the events that you guys have gone to in Walt Disney World?
Magic and Merriment sold out in less than 5 minutes. Yeah. So
I did the Flowers and Fireworks event, and that one went pretty fast too. But I did get these Destination D tickets the very first day they were on sale. I had no idea what it was going to be. In fact, actually, because earlier events had sold out so fast, I actually bought 2 tickets, not knowing if somebody else would need one. So,
well, and I think too, so for me, when they started doing things like opening up the archives and the studios to tours, I was very fortunate to get one of the tickets to the very first archives tour, and that for me, and I've been able to see and do a lot since I started doing this stuff, was just the most incredible, memorable experience, because that was sort of the backstage that nobody ever got to see. To get inside the archives, to get onto the studio lot. So when I heard about Destination D, I anticipated an experience like that, and again, one that sold out in a matter, literally, of seconds online.
It sold out actually before it even went on sale. It was scheduled to go at 10 o'clock, and the tickets went on sale at 9:56, and they were gone before 10 o'clock hour. So, yeah, that was...
Well, I don't think that they anticipated the reaction that they got to that, the response that there was going to be. And since then, they start opening up more and more, and this year they're going to continue to open that up because they know how many people got shut out of something that was a group of 50 at a time. I think there was maybe 3 groups that first day.
Yeah, this year I think they did 3 or 4 different tours of the studio itself, but they did 2 tours at a time this time, 3 times a day. So they did 6 tours through the studios. And amazing tour guides throughout the entire thing. I mean, Laura was my tour guide. I believe she was yours also.
And again, it's that access and just sort of being there, being in the archives. Look, I've told the bird story 500 times, but I'm telling you, Dave Smith, put on some gloves when you're handling the bird, for God's sake. So something else happened too, Becky, when we heard about this and the disappointment that we had last year, because there was no collector form. There wasn't going to be an opportunity for some of us who there's a business aspect of it or an additional aspect of it for us that we aren't able to have something like the fan forum and the collectors forum, but we knew that we wanted to do something else as a community, because the D23 is about not just the D23 community, but all the Disney communities. We wanted to do something for WDW radio listeners, and again, something that was kind of special. We knew a lot of people would be coming in on Thursday for the events that were going to be started on Friday. You're getting that smirk on your face that we always had, because the wheel started to turn. And what we put together, in addition to just to having sort of a meet of the month in Disneyland, which was unique for me, because this is not my home park, and this is not yet.
It's interesting, I got to say, on that piece, to see your face, if we say, hey, let's go to the Haunted Mansion and watch you try to go right and the rest of us go left, it's kind of like we have to actually kind of lead you around. It's kind of neat.
Nothing here is where it's supposed to be. I walk around, I hit dead ends, there's a fantasy fair, there's Critter Country, there's no way out, but I'm putting down the map and I'm getting better. And we'll talk about some of the guidance that I received. A lot of firsts for me on this trip, and one of the things that I had never done before was World of Color. And not only done before, but I did not watch the broadcast. I did not watch a video. I didn't see any pictures.
You didn't look at YouTube or anything? You didn't watch any of them?
Nothing.
Really?
Didn't know the theme song. All I knew was that it was Bellagio fountains with color. That was what I had in my mind. And so what we thought we would put together, again, this event was sponsored by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, was... Because how busy, that's it. Because World of Color is such an incredibly popular show, so much so that you have to get fast passes outside the park early in the day, we said, wouldn't it be cool if we could plus that experience by giving people a private viewing area? And hey, it's all about the food. Let's throw some dessert in as well. And then, of course, you and I, unbeknownst to everybody who was coming, plan some surprises as well.
And we kept this secret. I got to say, we did a really good job. It was you, me, and Disney were the only ones that knew what we were doing. And, of course, I just want to kind of lay out there for people who haven't seen World of Color, it's not the easiest show to see because you really do have to plan to either get one of the dining packages or get in line for the Fast Pass. And then once you get the Fast Pass, you have to get in the other line to wait to be led to the area you're supposed to be in. Then you have to fight for the area in your little space. So you and I talked about it and decided that maybe we can take some inconvenience off of the community and say let's do this really cool little place set aside. So yeah, we got to plus it up. You and I have got to find these things to plus things up for. So we did the World of Color, which of course, what were your thoughts? I'm gonna throw this back to you and ask you about the show itself before we talk about the pluses.
And that's a whole separate show because I was blown away by World of Color. It far exceeded the expectations that I had in my mind of what the show was going to be. I was like, oh, it's going to be like Fantasmic. It'll be nice and cute and colors and fountains. And I laughed. I put my head on John Tartaglia's shoulder, and I think I wept just a little bit. But it was a very powerful, multi-layered, moving, inspirational, insert adjective, adverb here kind of show. And I was like, I'm good. I'm done. I was that happy. What did you guys... Did you all attend the World of Color party?
Yeah.
What was it that sort of drew you to the event? Especially not being for those of you who are Disneyland locals and for those who maybe don't get out here that often.
Well, I always loved going to Becky's events because there's always something extra.
I love you, Lee.
You're never going to hear the end of this. All right, let's move on to somebody else.
I knew I had to come. I was excited. It was a chance to see you because I was working. I couldn't come to the meet. And it was just a way to come and start connecting with people before the Destination D.
I had already heard how difficult it was to get into World of Color, and I knew this was the easiest way to do it, was to go with Becky. So here we were.
I was going to say, I've tried seeing World of Color. This is the first chance I've had to see it, and to have a dedicated spot to watch it was going to be incredible. And I've been to Becky's events also before. Always had fun with it. I mean, you have to admit, MEI Mouse Fan Travel has done a great job.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah, somebody's looking for a free ticket to the next event. All right, but I do want to make sure we allot enough time to talk about Destination D, but I do want to touch on the event because the other thing we wanted to do first, because this was about the community, we wanted to give everybody a chance to get together and meet each other before Destination D, because what we found was that Destination D was going to be a very different animal. Instead of being an area where people could walk and talk and meet, it was a very sort of, and I don't mean this in a negative way, almost sort of an academic where you're sitting in an auditorium and you're listening to presentations and there's not a lot of interaction. So we wanted a chance for us to get together beforehand. And again, as MEI and Mouse Fan Travel does, plussing up and enhancing the experience with a surprise is always something that we want to do. So the first thing we thought would be like, well, it's cool. What do you say we take everybody after DCA closes, Disney California Adventure closes, we'll take them on Soarin', right? So we took them to, they did World of Color. We said, Jeremy, don't leave. Don't leave. There's desserts coming. We brought them over to Soarin', and everybody, was that a big surprise to everybody?
Absolutely. Having that all to ourselves. Basically, everyone filled up the entire ride all by ourselves after the park closed. And Soarin', as you all know, is just amazing. So it was very special.
I loved it. I was good with it. And then, of course, after Soarin', we marched everybody to the important part, which was the desserts, right? That was, of course, awesome to have. I wanted cupcakes. I was really excited when I saw the menu and I saw cupcakes. Okay, these things, chocolate and red velvet. And were they good? Because I didn't get one. That's the point. Were they good?
I never saw one either, so I'm with you.
So we know we need more cupcakes next time. But after all that, the hard part was we wanted to make sure that we had one big wow at the end. And we asked everybody to stand up and follow us for the end of the night. And we marched them down to the World of Color, right up against the water.
And what did you guys think at that point? Because you didn't know, you thought it was going to be dessert and then leave. What, if anybody, were you thinking when we said, follow us?
I really had no idea, but I thought since we were headed that way, I thought maybe she arranged another ride, maybe on California Screamin' or the Mickey Fun Wheel. Who knew?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. We were going to go do another ride around Paradise Pier. Had no idea what was about to come.
I knew what was coming, and even I was surprised because what Becky was able to do, and don't ask her how she works her magic, it's just Disney magic, was arrange for us an opportunity to go down right to the side of the water and speak with Imagineers about the genesis, the operation, and have a Q&A about World of Color. But it wasn't, not to say just an Imagineer, but there were 3 Imagineers, and this was the surprise to me, with Steve Davison.
Yes, it was a surprise to me. I had no idea really what Imagineers we were going to get, and then of course to get the producer as well. I mean, it was amazing to see those 3 people standing there, and I was speechless when I saw their faces.
And I was watching the dynamic of the group almost more than I was watching them to see how people were, because I know for me it was a geek out moment. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I was like, is everyone going to be like, oh, yeah, I wanted to ride Soarin' again, but this is all right. What was sort of your guys' reaction when they came out and had a chance to talk to you and then do some Q&A with them?
First thing I did was break out the iPhone and start videotaping the entire thing.
I like how you think, John.
I made sure that I had that thing, a video camera going to capture the entire event of what everybody was saying.
It felt really special because we're a small group, and I was just amazed that as this small group, we were able to have this caliber of people speaking to us.
Yeah, it took a few minutes to sink in that the Imagineers were staying there talking to us about making the World of Color. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible because not only did they talk to us about it, but then they showed us little pieces about it, and they explained it, and then they did a Q&A. They were with us for over 30 minutes, which was a little bit longer than we actually had talked to them about doing it. But you could tell on their faces they were just as thrilled to be there as we were, because you could tell that they were so passionate, and they were just really into sharing the thoughts about the show.
And like Destination D, they're preaching to the choir. These are the people that are hanging on their every word and would have sat there and continued to ask them questions. And look, when they were standing there and getting on the mic and telling them to demo this kind of color or this kind of sequence, and they were very forthcoming too. I mean, they talked about not just how perfect World of Color is, but the challenges that they face and things that go wrong. So I appreciated that level of candor for that. And look, and then we're also in DCA where we turn around and we see the walls coming down and they're working on Little Mermaid, and just to be in that environment sort of after dark, like you said, when you kind of feel like you have it all to yourself is really cool.
One other thing was I was just amazed with the fact that he was able to have the engineers and everybody else start, okay, I want this type of fan of water going. Let's redo the Pocahontas scene and show you that and how everything works and how far we shoot water up was amazing. And
as if on cue, it actually brings up another first, because I've never seen Wishes in Disneyland.
Well, you won't know either because that wasn't Wishes.
They sang Wishes. So to me,
it was Remember the Magic.
Well, I heard.
Now, remember, dreams come true.
Yeah. All right, remember.
See, so I was wrong, and you were wrong. So it doesn't. But they sang Wishes. Well, but you're right. It was not Wishes. It was Wishes at the beginning and Wishes at the end. And what I really loved was all the attraction sound clips. It's like you said, Jeremy. They took on a sort of a virtual tour of the park. Again, a lot of firsts for me in Disneyland, starting with World of Color. But I want to really get into the events themselves, starting with Friday morning. Registration actually began on Thursday, but Friday morning registration opened, and the events really kicked off at 9 o'clock with a welcome from Stephen Clark. And then they really got right into it, and everything took place in a single room at the Disneyland Hotel Convention Center. There was about 1,500 people or so with seats on the floor, and then 2 other levels on either side, and then large screens up in front. And the first presentation was called We're Disney, and it was hosted by Becky Klein and Paul Anderson, a noted, incredible Disney historian. Becky Klein, as you probably know, has taken over Dave Smith's role, or is in the process of taking over his role as the head archivist of the Walt Disney Archives. This is one of the ones that when I saw on the schedule, I was really excited about because I'm weird and I like Disney, so it was a really good fit, and I think a lot of you all felt the same way. Was this one of the things that you guys saw on the schedule and was really excited about?
Yeah, I talked to Becky before about that, and she's would hint to what was coming up at some of the other events, and that one was just weird that for the fact that things that they were pulling out of the archives and different photos and everything else really focused on things that we did not know about and how the company ran the parks at the beginning of what was going on.
Yeah, and they really did bring out some of those things from the archives. And again, like the tour, that's one of the things that I think the people who come to these events are so excited about seeing. I mean, look, like I said, Miley Cyrus and Johnny Depp was great, but this is the stuff that, totally geek out us Disney fans. And it was great because you've got the access to things we never would have seen. Paul Anderson not only knows his stuff, but is a great personality, and the two of them worked well together. And it wasn't a very dry presentation. It was definitely something that was a lot of fun.
Well, Becky and Paul have been friends for years and years. I mean, they go and visit each other. Paul lives up in Utah, so she'll come up to Utah and visit his family and everything else. He'll come down to the archives, and he'll be working there and visit with Becky and constantly.
Yeah. Their chemistry was amazing. Getting the two of them together, it was really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, and his Disney collection is worthy of like a mini archives in and of itself, too. So he used to actually publish a great magazine called Persistence of Vision, which unfortunately isn't around anymore. And again, there was what I liked, too, was it was kind of something for everybody. So the next presentation was the anniversary of the Mickey Mouse Club. That was hosted by Tim O'Day, again, another great Disney historian, great personality. And they brought out a lot of the original Mouseketeers. So for people who, Becky, like you, grew up with the Mouseketeers when they were running, when it was a first run.
Wow, yeah, like Lisa Wenchel. That's who I grew up with.
It was a lot of fun, and we love seeing these people who, for many of us, whether you saw it as an original or you saw them on reruns, the Mickey Mouse Club, everybody's had a chance to see. What did you guys think of this presentation?
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I was one of those that grew up watching the Mouseketeers in reruns and thought at the time when I was 5 and 6, those were the original ones, and I was watching the original series, and it was just really fantastic to hear them get together, talk about all their memories, and there's still that camaraderie between the whole group. They even touched on Annette and what she was doing now and how she was doing. It was really kind of special.
Yeah, it kind of gives you a sense that you're almost able to sort of touch that Disney history by hearing from the people, and it continues on later on in the day as well with one of the presentations that I was really excited about. The next one was hosted by Stacia Martin, again, Paul Anderson, and Disney archivist Rob Klein. That was From Quirky to Collectible, the wonderful world of Disneyland merchandise. And although I'm not a Disneyland home park guy, I love the old collectibles. And again, almost like Weird Disney, they brought out a lot of those very curious, very interesting things, and again, opened up the archives to us. What did you guys think about this presentation?
I thought it was fascinating. There was just so much strange merchandise that they showed, and all the different history of that, and it was just really neat.
Yeah, they did a lot of top fives as far as top 5 rarest pieces, strangest pieces. Fascinating, especially when they get down to the very end and you see things like the very first Disneyland ticket. And I know for people who are collectors, they like to get an idea of maybe, things that they might have in their collection that would sort of fit on this list.
I wasn't there.
We see who the true fans really are.
Wait. I gotta explain why. It's because there were a couple of people who've never been to Disneyland before, and I had to show them a little bit about my favorite pieces of the park. So I added a little bit of my own Disney history to a couple of newbies.
Nice way to back out of sitting through the quirky to collectible.
It's a ballroom. It's chairs. It's collectibles. Move on.
So there was a signing by the Mouseketeers that afternoon, and then a break for lunch. And both days sort of followed this pattern. There was 3 in the morning, a few in the afternoon with breaks for lunch and dinner. Another one that park enthusiasts were very excited about was Tom Fitzgerald, legendary Disney Imagineer, hosting the Making of Star Tours. And with the reimagineering of Star Tours 2.0 coming out, it's been a big buzz, especially with the attractions closing on both coasts recently. Was this one of the things that you were expecting to see, the history of Star Tours? Were you waiting for the big announcement? Were you waiting for a big announcement or something to be revealed? Because I think that's what a lot of D23 fans are coming to expect, that we're coming here, we're expecting a payoff. We want something special just for us.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to have them go over the history of Star Tours, but the main reason to be there was any more information on Star Tours 2 that they were going to give.
And we did get things like, we saw some of the new characters that are going to be there. He made subtle references, but there was no, okay, and here's the Steve Jobs one more thing. Were you excited? Were you satisfied? Were you disappointed?
I was satisfied. I mean, the stuff that they did go over with the history of Star Tours was really interesting. I mean, the information they gave on Star Tours 2 was already out there, so, I mean, it was good to see again, but was hoping for a little something more.
Me too. I'm sorry. I was back for this. As a matter, I just want to set the record straight. I was hoping for a little bit more information, but it was awesome to see the renderings, the artist renderings of how the pieces came together and how the characters came together as well. It was kind of fascinating to see.
Like the pre-bearded George Lucas, I thought was...
Oh my gosh, yes. Those were great pictures. They were great pictures to share.
And the... one thing that I think people who weren't able to attend, and those of us who, I do the show and I've got the site that I'm going to cover the event for, is that one thing they were very, very strict about was there was not only no videotaping, but there was no audio taping as well. You could take some still photography. I know Jeremy took like 18,000 still shots, probably better than the ones I took on my iPhone.
I've got 1,400 photos from the beginning until halfway through the second day when my battery died. So
we're gonna link to Jeremy's photos, and we're gonna take up a collection and buy him a second battery as well. But you saw the social media stuff going on because there was a dim glow on the floor as you saw all the tweets and Facebook posts being up, and it was sort of a great way to sort of share the information that was coming out, like Ace and some of the other new characters and stuff from Star Tours. Paul Anderson, workhorse that he is, came back out for something I really was excited about because I love the genesis of the Disney parks and going back to the World's Fair and the development of audio animatronics. Scott, I know this is something that you enjoy as well.
Absolutely. This is the one I was really looking forward to. I'm a huge fan of all of the attractions that came out of the World's Fair, and they actually broke down one of them in a lot of detail, and that was the Ford Progress Land, which is absolutely my favorite of the four, and so I'm glad that they were able to show a lot of artwork and the origins of that very particular attraction. So that a lot of stuff I had never seen before. It was amazing.
Yeah, and again, they also talked about, the thing that always fascinates me about Walt Disney is his ability and his Imagineer's ability to sort of overcome a lot of the challenges that they come up against, especially when they're breaking new ground with things like audio animatronics. Marty Sklar, again, legendary Disney Imagineer, hosted Imagining the Magic of Disney, which is supposed to run from like 4 to 5:45. It ran from like 4 to 7:30 because when you get legends of Imagineering like Bob Gurr, X Atencio, Alice Davis, Don Iwerks, it's sort of the next generation of soon-to-be legendary Imagineers like Dave Durham, Kathy Mangum, Kevin Rafferty, and Tony Baxter on stage talking about especially for the first group, their memories of working for and with Walt, the attractions that they created, what they love about the theme parks. And it was fun because, some of these guys, especially the older ones that don't work for the company anymore, they get a little... Squirrely color, yeah. Insert, term here. But for me, I think, and all of us, we could sit and listen to those guys just talk all day long.
I think, too, watching X, realizing he's in his early 90s, and this may be one of the last times we get to see him, that was something that was pretty special. Getting to hear him talk about it and hearing Alice Davis talk about her memories with her husband and everything that the family had done for the parks.
And sneaking into the park. Some of the stories that these people were telling were just amazing and entertaining, and just had us all laughing out loud, which was wonderful to watch. And I got to say, the one thing I was doing more often was watching the current cast members, the current Imagineers, the current name tag people, as they would just, their faces would just kind of like, I can't say a word, when the older folks were just going off, telling these stories, and it was just so entertaining to watch.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic because you can see this camaraderie and the fellowship that they've had for literally decades, always being behind the scenes. And the one thing that Deep 23 has done has sort of brought them to the forefront and almost made them celebrities and it brings them in front of the people that appreciate their work so much. And I know some of them almost feel accidentally thrust into the limelight. I don't think Ex Atencio realized back then that at 90 he sings 2 bars from Yo Ho, the crowd's going to lose their mind.
Or Bob Gurr. What can you say about Bob Gurr? The guy is so colorful and so fun to watch, and he's got so many great stories. We need to invite him to dinner one night. We really do.
Yeah, and speaking of dinner, and we've had a chance to sit and talk with Bob during the mouse meet. Yep. One of the highlights for me, and one that I am going to hear grief about listen, people, if you're listening, I was cordially invited by Becky Mankin from MAI and Mouse Fan Travel.
After begging me for
an evening at Club 33, the very exclusive private club in Disneyland, and of course I said yes. But again, the schedule came out so late. Very, very late. Almost, I would have liked to have seen it much earlier, so you could have planned ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was disappointing to me, is that the schedule did come out too late to really make good, solid plans around it.
But e-ticket, music from the Disney parks, ran from 8:30 through 10, and this is the one that I circled because as part of this Legends celebration this year, celebrating the Legends, not just with the Marty Sklar presentation and sort of what they did last year at the Expo, they bring out Richard Sherman, who gets in front of the grand piano and plays a medley and tells the stories behind songs like It's a Small World and The Tiki Room and Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. And the guy is still so vibrant and so emotive when he plays. I unfortunately had to pass up dinner at Club 33, and I feel, listen, I got the Italian guilt, and I'm continuing to get it from you, but I couldn't miss a night with Richard Sherman.
And I don't blame you a bit, because obviously if we could have changed it, I would have in a heartbeat, because this was one of the ones that I was so excited to see as well. But, when you got some people who get you into Club 33, you don't say no or don't ask them to change it. So, unfortunately, I had to give up on Richard Sherman. But I got to tell you, when I saw the name Richard Sherman on there, I knew you were going to bail.
I did bail. I had to bail because...
But you also kind of yelled at me and kind of poked me about the fact that they called up all of the birthday people on stage. So I missed out on that as well.
Yes, because our Night of World of Color was your birthday
You could have gone up there for me. You could have gone up there and said, hey, I turned down my friend. She's at Club 33, but I'm going to get whatever.
I did sing to you. But in addition to Richard Sherman, part of the presentation tonight was a full-blown concert, including people like John Tartaglia, Taryn Brooks, Anna Ortiz, Wilson Cruz, Tracy Toms, Michael Urey, the Mellow D23 Choir, of which Becky Klein and some of the other archive people are a member. And I will tell you that for me, this was worth the price of admission.
Oh, definitely. Everybody was looking forward to the concert itself. Richard came out first and just wowed everybody. And then each other person came out and sang their favorite Disney attraction song. And at times they'd follow it right on, or sometimes they just go with their own almost version of it, and it was just incredible to listen to. I mean, who would have known Jeffrey at D23 could sing like that? I mean, it was amazingly good.
And guys like John Tartaglia, who was first to sort of MC the event to a certain degree, I love because the guy is a Disney fan first. I met him for the first time at the D23 Expo last year. He came up to the booth, and he's like, "Hey, I've got your books." And I'm like, "You're the Johnny and the Sprites guy." I did like the little jazz hands, and I got all excited. And I'm like, my kids and me, I was like, "We love you." I didn't even know about like Avenue Q. I'm like, "You're Johnny and the Sprites." And I actually saw him the morning of World of Color. I was like, "Dude, it's Johnny and the Sprites." He's like, "Hey, it's Lou Mangello." I'm like, "Oh my God, Johnny knows my name." So like he came to the World of Color party, and he loved it as much as we did as fans. So when he came out on stage, he told such personal stories about his love of the parks. I mean, look, the guy was wandering Disneyland by himself during the day, riding rides, because that's what he loved. And so I think he, more so than anybody else there, really brought a true love and passion to his performance.
Oh, I thought he did a fantastic job. I mean, I'm like you. I know Johnny from Johnny and the Sprites having a 5-year-old, so it was kind of special to see him in a totally new light from just singing with a bunch of puppets, which, by the way, he did bring his own puppets that he made 30 minutes before the presentation, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, these Lemme puppets, and he sang his own version of Grim Grinning Go. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, it was hilarious. But I also got to say, Michael Urie of From Ugly Betty, he was hilarious too. He came out and sang all kinds of songs, and he was very funny.
And they got the crowd involved, and they got the people involved. And I think again too, even after a long day, and I want to kind of segue to that, people would have sat there all night. And the concert for me was a really. That it really wrapped up what I thought was a great day of presentations. One thing, though, you're going to want to mention, though, is the fact that, yeah, they pulled people up there for their birthdays, but they did not sing Happy Birthday. They were singing Happy Unbirthday to everybody else. And he's, like, making sure that when he gets to that point, he's turned around and he's pointing at the crowd and pointing at everybody else except for those 3 people. But it was great because it had everybody engaged, and they were, they were, tearing up with Richard Sherman, and they were laughing with this, and Jeffrey Epstein got up there, and I'm like, oh, man, somebody must have canceled out. And the guy belts out this number, and you're like, holy smokes, where'd that come from?
That's right. He sang a duet of A Whole New World, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So the Disney geek, listen, he's got many talents. But before I move on to day 2, I want to ask you about the first day and sort of the flow of the day. The one thing that I thought was different and better as opposed to last year's D23 was that there was no overlap. There was no running around. You weren't getting online for an hour and a half to potentially get shut out of the Imagineering or the Legends presentation. However, you were in one room all day from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. with breaks, and you had to change seats every time the sessions broke. You did have to go back in and find new seats, but it was done in a very well-organized manner. What did you guys think about the flow of the day?
Well, yeah, that was actually very key. One of the great things about this is that unlike the D23 Expo, everyone felt like it was fair and that you got to see everything that they were offering. And so, I really very much enjoyed that aspect of it.
Did you feel like you were sitting in a classroom or a seminar for too long?
Well, it was very long days, but it was, the best material you could ask for, so you wanted it to last long. And
well, it was fantastic material. They were trying to present a lot of things all at once, and I totally understand that, but it got to be a little monotonous just continuing to sit there and watch slides, so I would have liked a little bit of interaction. Getting up and waiting in line an hour and a half to 2 hours before the next session was also not a lot of fun because you ended up losing your whole day anyway. But other than that, I thought it went pretty well the first day.
Yeah, I think that the content certainly was engaging, but it sometimes is a lot to ask people to sit for 3 hours. And I was, again, watching the dynamic of the crowd. And sometimes by that third presentation, there were yawns, people were walking. Paul Anderson called out somebody who was walking out of his presentation, in a very funny way. But it was a lot. And the thing that I felt, and some of us talked about it at the end of day one, was there was I think they pulled out what they felt was the most compelling and maybe the best of the expo from last year, which were the presentations that people really wanted to see, the things that were the people and the stories and the content. I mean, look, they could have sat there and shown slides from the archives all day and people would have sat and watched. But I think the thing that was missing, and was sort of as an overall experience of these past few days, was the social aspect of it. Because many of us who knew each other from communities or the shows or friends, whatever it was, the sessions would break and we would go to downtown Disney or go to Disneyland and have lunch. But for many people, especially some that were there by themselves, there was no opportunity, other than the time that you were in line, to sort of engage and get to meet some of the other attendees. And I think that was the one thing that I felt was missing from this part of the expo.
I totally agree. And for me, it did feel a lot like I was sitting in a classroom and watching slides and listening to an Uber presenter at college or something. But it was obviously the content was amazing, but I would have liked to have seen it maybe go into another day and maybe have some social piece in there, because like you said, you line up an hour and a half before the doors even open and you're sitting until lunch, and then you get up and you go and you sit again and you leave. It would have been nice to have some sort of social interaction, some sort of even break in the day that allowed you to go to the parks or to do something besides sit in the chair.
What kind of thing would you say? Maybe we could say this at the end, but start thinking about something that maybe you would suggest that they would do for next year. You know, I thought about it, I said, well, what if we did something in Disneyland? What if we got people out into downtown Disney or into the parks, or had one of these presentations somewhere, or break up, you know, something in a tiki room or a mansion or something like that, where you're getting people out into the parks. And I know not everybody has a Disneyland pass, but again, something else that they can do outside the presentation rooms. And again, I think the content was compelling enough to keep people there and keep people engaged, but again, it was a long time of sitting.
Right. I think that there's got to be an answer. There's got to be some sort of happy medium. Again, going back to the expo itself, it's apples and oranges. You really can't compare the two. But I did miss that element of being able to walk around and meet new people and see what elements of the community they're involved with and what they have to bring to the table. That was a piece I was missing.
Yeah, and again, this was certainly designed not to be a mini expo, but something very different. And I think it's also, I think the flow still went very well. I mean, there was no sort of craziness as far as the lines and people getting seats, and again, nobody got shut out of anything.
True, but all that being said, though, it's amazing how many people I have met this week, and you know, through all the breaks that we've had, and you know, even during the day today during the scavenger hunt, I have been around a lot of friends and made new ones too. So that's actually been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and it certainly is. I think part of the goal of D23 is to bring individuals and online communities together and a chance to meet each other. And you're right. I mean, we've had a great time doing that, although it wasn't necessarily facilitated by the events that were going on. The next day, again, the schedule was again packed from starting at 9 a.m., starting with, again, Disneyland through the eyes of television. And certainly we know the importance of television bringing Disneyland to life, and sort of a vice versa. Again, this was hosted by Disney archivist Rob Klein. Gave a great look at the history of Disneyland. It showed not just slides, but there was a lot of videos for things like Disneyland in the 60s and 70s, which the pop culture aspect of it was interesting in and of itself. But you saw introduction of new attractions and new parades, the new Tomorrowland. What did you guys think of this presentation, especially those of you who call Disneyland home?
Yeah, I very much enjoyed this one. It included a lot of the footage, you know, of the old Disneyland TV programs that I absolutely love, and including a whole bunch that are not available on DVD, and a lot of new commercials, old commercials that were hilarious and fun. So.
That was what was so fun about watching those, is that there were memories from, you know, when we were in the 80s. You would see these, the way people, did we really dress that way? This is what I really want to know.
Still dress that way.
But to see the old commercials, and oh my gosh, the old specials. Remember the specials that they were showing with Sandy Duncan and Ruth Buzzy running through the Haunted Mansion? And it really did bring back a little bit of a different side that I totally forgot existed. So it was fun to watch.
And I think that we're seeing that a lot of these things, are driven by a sense of nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Whether your nostalgia goes back to 55 with the opening of Disneyland or the Mickey Mouse Club or whatever it was, the things that were most of interest to people were the things that touched them personally, depending on what their connection was to it. But I think the one that may have been the one that people discussed the most, and I think they can have the day of Disney Undiscovered by Dave Fisher, was where they took out the old concept art for those unrealized and unbuilt attractions from Imagineering. And those slideshows, I mean, there were more iPhones and droids and cameras clicking away as those came up than probably any other presentation.
And to find out that 96% of all the ideas that they do they're blue skying, are just thrown in a vault now to maybe one day pull out. And it was kind of interesting to find out how many of those they really do have, that they have pulled out now, that they've put in and implemented into the rides that they're building today. That was really kind of cool.
Yeah, that was great, because he mentioned that people keep asking, if you're not going to build these, show us what you could have done, what you might have done. He's like, we don't do that because these ideas that we looked at 20, 30 years ago, we're now taking little bits of it and putting into what now exists.
Right. Well, actually, I'm actually waiting for the Black Cauldron water ride. I'm waiting for that to be built.
As soon as Rock Candy Mountain is done, they're going to move right on to Black Cauldron.
Well, personally, I got to say that this is one of the pieces of the presentation that actually made Destination D for me, because it lifted the veil a little bit of information from Imagineering that we really don't get. And to be able to see these things in front of us and have the Imagineers talking directly with us without taking off their name tag first to kind of lift, again, the veil or pull back the curtain a little bit to things and ideas that they've come up with. I think it was fantastic. And
you really get a sense that it wasn't just, this was not a very quickly thrown together series of presentations, because these guys, they worked to go through the archives. They really, I got the sense that they wanted to deliver, because there was no way that they could have sort of just repurposed what they had published in books and magazines before. They needed to deliver. They needed to give us a bit of a wow factor. And you saw and heard those gasps of breath as some of these things, and it was the oohs and the ahs and the, in addition to the please bring back the people mover screams from the audience, the ones like, what's the possibility of getting this attraction? And also celebrated the people who came up with it, because they brought it back to some of the names from Imagineering, which I like. It's because the Imagineers, especially now because of D23, are no longer faceless names. We know who the Bob's Gurrs are. We know who the Alice Davises are, or even the next generation, like the Tony Baxters. And to connect it to those people individually, I think, makes it more personal.
Right.
Dave Smith, again, the chief archivist who is retiring this year, brought out Disneyland the Way We Were as the final presentation of the morning. Sorry, I'm hitting Becky as we're talking.
Why are you hitting me?
And this was one of the ones that was of interest to me, because I have no history at Disneyland. Other than a brief visit back in 2005, that's a separate Olga story for another day. My first real visit was in 2008, but I quickly fell in love, and certainly this trip solidified my renewed love for Disneyland. And I invite you to go back to Show 53, why every Walt Disney World fan needs to visit Disneyland. But for a lot of people, this was Dave Smith trying to rekindle those memories of the Mickey Mouse Club Circus and the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship, the Frito Kid, America Sings. And again, there were a lot of those people going, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that. Or this was right before my time. And I know, Scott, this is one of the ones that you really liked.
Right. And not only that, he had color photography of the construction of Disneyland, which you never see. I mean, you've seen it in black and white some, but there were so many photos of the construction, and then certainly the early years of Disneyland. It was just absolutely beautiful. And so
this one was killing off the battery on my camera. I have a picture of every one of those slides.
And again, too, in this one and many of the other ones, the things that people really enjoyed were those never-before-seen photographs of Walt. This is Walt's park, that what makes it so very special. And I get it now, having been here so many times, when you see the picture of Walt, walking down Main Street and giving autographs to kids, and here during the construction, it really brings home such a sense of that true sort of magic that he brought to it.
Well, what I was going to say is the slides that came up, and tonight as we were walking around the park, I was trying to place where some of those were, because things have changed in this park since the time that those were taken, and a lot has been added and subtracted and taken away. So as you're looking at it from the perspective of some of those photos, you kind of look and go, wow, that's where that was. Or now I remember from a kid, I looked at Scott and said, wow, I remember the spinning rock, and where was that? And I totally had forgotten about it until I saw those pictures. It was really cool to relive that.
Yeah, and the afternoon, the final sessions of the afternoon and evening was hosted by Tim O'Day. The first one was Disneyland, the happiest place in pop culture, where he talked about, how pop culture has affected Disneyland as Disneyland has affected pop culture. Again, Tim O'Day is one of the finest Disney authorities out there, and again, brought back, to taking it down memory lane and bringing back the bad clothes and the bad hair, of which there will be pictures of me you have a better chance of seeing stuff in the archives than the pictures of me at Disney World in the 70s and 80s. And I want to ask you guys about the next presentation, because this is another one that I heard a lot of discussion about. It was a word from the president. It was hosted by Garth Kemp, who, from what I understand, is a local TV reporter or a local TV weatherman. And he brought out and had a conversation with Disney President George Kalogridis, talking about his history and experience and views on the park. There was also a Q&A session. I wasn't able to sit through the entire part of this. I want to know what your guys' feeling was on this, and there's a reason why I'm asking specifically about this one.
The way it went, it was a good QA session, but I can guarantee that thing was not scripted because of the questions that were being asked. You could tell that George was just kind of stumbling at times trying to get the right answer out for it, because there are certain things that obviously he can't share with us yet, because there are things that they are working on. So overall, it was a good QA session. However, you could tell that there was more that he would want to give us but just could not do.
Right. And I did think this was a good session in that it showed us that George Kalogridis is one of the really good presidents of Disneyland. He's very passionate about it, and he's out in the parks quite a bit. And but also, on the other hand, I this is where I was expecting some announcements of the park, and there were some. Not the one I was hoping for, but.
No people.
So what were you expecting? And certainly, all right. Let's throw the People Mover. People Mover is not coming back tomorrow. Neither is the Skyway. But what were you expecting to hear?
Well, to be honest, the People Mover coming back is what I was really hoping for, and I had heard a few things, but and he did touch up on it, but he didn't say that it was not coming back. He just said, it couldn't come back in its current form. So there's hope for that.
He took the time to explain why the People Mover couldn't come back, and that that acknowledges at least that, yes, I hear what you're saying, I know that's what you want, and here's why I can't bring it back, which was kind of nice to be told by Disney, we do care what you're saying, which is so different sometimes from what we normally get.
Right. He acknowledges the passion, and you're right, taking the time to not just say, it's not coming back, but stay tuned.
It was nice to hear it from his mouth rather than read it on the internet and hear all the different stories as to why or if it's coming back. It was nice to get some solid information from the Disney brass.
There were other aspects of the presentation. Tell us a little bit about the Tron portion and the Mickey portion.
Okay. They did their...
You can't start off by going, okay.
Well, what was going on is they did their top 5 questions, and when they got down to the number 1 question, we had one of the cast members come out and interrupt them so that they could introduce the new I can't remember.
The Electronica show.
Well, they did Electronica, but they also had them come out and do the new Disney Rocks or Dance Crew. Yes, Dance Crew came out and did a presentation of the new show that they're going to be doing in Disney California Adventure. So we had a showing of that, and then
It was sort of Mickey came out. It was sort of like a disco Mickey for the 2010s kind of presentation. And there was also, they talked about Electronica. They had a sort of this interpretive Tron dance, and they showed a Tron trailer. And again, I think there was that sense of the delivery. Okay, here's what you haven't seen before. almost a sense of, you owe it to us to show us something new. Is that how you felt when you saw that it was the same trailer, or were you expecting something more when they started all the Tron stuff?
I was actually hoping that we could see something that they did at Comic-Con, because this trailer that we saw has been out for a couple of months already. So seeing that, it's like, yeah, I love the trailer. It's a great trailer, but I wanted to see some, like, at the expo, hey, we're going to show you, at that time, Rapunzel. Here's 3D glasses. We want you to watch this in 3D. I was hoping for something like that for what they had done for Comic-Con.
Yeah, I mean, do you get a sense that that's sort of what people the D23 fans are looking for when they come to these events is something that they haven't, an expectation that you're going to get something that you haven't seen before because you're a D23 member, or should that be maybe a false expectation that people shouldn't come in with?
I think that's an appropriate level of expectation. I think we should come into it. If we're the Uber fans, we're the one. I mean, if they're showing that stuff at Comic-Con, at least they can bring us a little nugget of information. Even it doesn't have to be major. Just give us a little something new, a little something special to reward the loyalty back to the company. That's just the expectation I have.
And the final two presentations of the evening, and actually the Destination D, was The Wonderful World of Vintage Disneyland in color. Here, Ed Holman and Imagineer Tony Baxter, again, brought some of that rare footage of Disneyland from the 50s and 60s, which they narrated. And I think that was nice to hear them sort of give their thoughts and their feelings as to what they were showing. And then the final aspect was, again, a Disneyland USA screening and panel hosted by Tim O'Day, included not just people like Tony Baxter and Ed Holman, but Dave Smith and Jack Lindquist. And how did you guys feel about that presentation and that presentation sort of being the capper of the Destination D event?
Well, I got to say, the Wonderful World of Vintage Disneyland in color with Tony Baxter and Ed Holberman, that was fantastic. Apparently, they had found hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage, like in the vault of old Disneyland that had never seen the light of day, and they were showing that, and it was some of the things in there were absolutely amazing. Even like the tryouts for the mermaids, and how all the guys wanted to judge that competition. That was fun.
Yeah, they said they had 200 hours of film there, and they had only restored 100 hours of it so far, so they don't even know what's coming up yet, and they're going to keep on restoring it to get everything out there for us to be able to see.
And did you feel like that was a bit of a payoff, saying, hey, here's for the first time, you guys are seeing something that nobody else has seen before, and oh, by the way, more is coming, and probably not just we're going to release it on things like Destination D events, but you might see it on things like DVD.
That'd be great. That's something that definitely the D23 members, the Uber Disney geeks, definitely are going to be like, when can we get our hands on that? When can we have it in our homes and be able to watch it anytime we want?
I think, though, the highlight of the night was watching the very last taping that Walt Disney ever did that was supposed to be shown the night before the premiere of Follow Me Boys. I mean, not knowing that history or anything, and then realizing that he had taped this, talking about wishing he could be there with everybody, and realizing that he had just passed away. I mean, everybody, there wasn't a dry eye in the whole place, knowing that. And then showing that footage, showing the part of the Follow Me Boys, and the music from that, and how, if you really thought about it, how it really tied into Walt Disney and everything that he represents to so many of us, it really was probably the special part of the night. And it was one of those highlights that we were looking for.
So you think it was an appropriate way to cap off the two-day presentation?
Absolutely, because they admitted this was the first time it had ever been shown to a public audience, which really made it sort of special to us.
I wasn't there.
You should have said it was fabulous and moved on.
Call me, I have photos.
I have a couple of questions about some of the things that you said. One aspect I want to touch on, which we haven't as yet, was sort of the other things that were going on, or not going on, in conjunction with the events and the presentation. So, you use the Spaceballs reference, merchandise. There was some Destination D merchandise that was available. There also was another room that had some jewelry and some artwork. What did you guys think about the merchandise that was available? Did you want more? Did you want less? What was the level of expectation?
They had some things there that I'm glad they had. I'll use the example, the Epcot patches that they send out with the magazines. Everybody has a chance of having one. unless you get yourself 9 subscriptions and you just luck out getting one of each. So they were actually selling those for $45 for the full set. I bought 2. One for myself and one for whatever I decide to do with it later on. Because, I mean, I've seen what they've gone for before, and it was just like, oh my gosh. So it was just wonderful that the other items they had, they were great. They showed previews of other items they're going to have in the future. The new 6-pin holiday set that they're going to be releasing, and then the Christmas pin set that they're going to have. They're giving people a chance to see what's going to be coming up, because people are after different items like this. As for the jewelry and things like that, I don't wear them, so someone else on that one.
Yeah, I got myself a shirt, a Destination D shirt. And then also, there was some neat merchandise by Jody Daly and Kevin Kidney that was phenomenal, and so that was
like what? Like what kind of?
They had some ice cream dishes, some soda glasses, and some shirts.
So did you feel that there was an appropriate level of merchandise? Do you think there was too much, too little? Because it wasn't sort of that thrown in your face kind of thing. It was off in a row. I think a lot of people actually missed a lot of the merchandise that was there.
Well, they gave us the opportunity to pre-order the items well beforehand and say, here's what we have. If you're an annual pass holder, let us know. We'll even give you the discount on it. And if you wanted to have it shipped home, let us know. We'll take care of that for you also. So the merchandise, to be honest, wasn't even near the ballroom necessarily. You had to walk down the hallway, through some more doors, down a longer hallway before you started seeing the items. So that, in ways, that was nice. They weren't trying to get you right at the front door saying buy, buy, buy. But if you are interested, if you go down this path, you'll find items.
And it wasn't like, one of the complaints about the expo last year was I had to wait online an hour and a half to go shopping in the D23 store. This was merchandise that was specific to the event, specific to D23, and again, some of the other special jewelry that I know Scott had picked up.
Absolutely.
But Jeremy, you mentioned something, and I think a couple of you said it a couple times, talking about things like uber geeks and hardcore fans and the nostalgics. Do you think that events like this and or D23 in general, do you think that we're the only ones that get a lot out of these things, or do you think D23 really is, there's something for everybody, sort of every level of Disney fan?
I think there is something for every level, especially those who are interested in the history. Anyone who has a connection to the parks and its history, or Walt and his business sense, or in the art of animation, or there's something here that's going to touch interests, a lot of different interests.
This event, I think, was more geared towards the uber geek, but that doesn't mean all the D23 events can't be shared or enjoyed by, casual fans or,
Right, and whereas the expo had all aspects of the company that was, that was followed by all ages, from young kids to all of us uber geeks, this was more geared towards the history fans of Disneyland.
Do you like the way they have this broken up? And I will talk about some announcements about things that are coming in the future, with sort of the expo every other year and then a Destination D filling in, I don't want to call it a gap in between, but sort of alternating the expo and Destination D?
I think, though, that they've changed that, because part of the announcement that they made was we were going to do expo every other year and we were going to do Destination D, and then with the announcement they made, that's not the case. Now we're going to be doing expo the same year that we're doing a Destination D, which I'm not so sure that they've decided that's really what they want to do after all.
Right, what they did, and one of the announcements that they did make, one of the information that they did reveal for the first time that nobody knew was coming, was that there will be a Destination D Walt Disney World, and there's going to be in an as-yet unannounced day in the spring of 2011, and they're also going to bring elements of things like Weird Disney and a lot of the Disney World history, again, keeping in mind that 2011 is Walt Disney World's 40th anniversary, much like this was celebrating Disneyland's 55, so maybe that was the logic behind it. They feel a need to acknowledge and celebrate Walt Disney World's anniversary, so I like it in that regard. I like the fact, because people would complain, well, hey, Disneyland got something. This is 40. It's a big anniversary. We should do something too. And again, there's many of us who, Walt Disney World history, man, they start bringing out concept art, I'll sit there for a week.
Yeah, that was the thing. I actually asked Steven about that last night. Wow, that was just last night. Last night, and
these are really long days, by the way.
They were quite long days. But no, I asked Steven, I thought you were going to do alternation between the Expo and Destination D and do that back and forth. Why are you doing one at Disney World next year? And he's like, well, to be honest, no one's doing anything for celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Magic Kingdom out there, Walt Disney World. And so we wanted to do something ourselves for it, to bring this out there. He goes, because the presentations they're working on here in Disneyland, they've also done more presentations also for Walt Disney World, and they want to be able to share those.
And I think that's what D23 brings, is that it is driven by people in the company who are fans first. Jeffrey Epstein, he was a book author. Stephen Clark, who's the head of D23, was a submarine voyage skipper. And these guys understand what we, as fans of every level, want to see and want to experience.
Right. And another thing about this Destination D that's happening in the spring of 2011 is that not a lot of the larger events like this have been at Disney World. Disneyland has gotten the Expo, this Destination D, and they have a lot of the events at the studios. So that's going to be very special for all the people out in Florida and on the East Coast.
Right, because I know when they had the one-year anniversary event in Walt Disney World, it was nice, and Stephen Clark and Becky were there, and then the anniversary in Disneyland had a lot of Imagineers, and people in Walt Disney were like, well, hey, we want to see these guys too. And I think they listen to that. I think they pay attention to I know they pay attention to what is being said and talked about online, and I think this is their way of saying, okay, we're going to bring these guys out so that people who can't get out to the West Coast, who are Walt Disney World fans, can appreciate that as well.
So, but is this setting a precedent that we're going to see an Expo and a Destination D every year? It's kind of interesting that there's going to be so much focus.
I don't know, considering they each there's one under their belts for each, I don't think any of these things are setting a precedent. I think certainly, much like D23 Expo, they were learning on the fly. They're seeing what works, what doesn't work, and they're seeing they're going to pay very close attention, I think, to what we as fans are responding to. And that's why I was curious over the past couple of days. I was talking to as many people as I could, and I wanted to talk about this in the roundtable format to get your opinions, because I think they want to hear that as well. So tell me, what do you think, and I'll kind of ask each of you individually, what do you think was the highlight or the best part or the most exciting or surprising part of Destination D for you?
Okay. Probably that they sold bras on Main Street.
They weren't selling bras now. They weren't Destination D bras on Main Street. Please clarify.
Well, there was part of the presentation. I'm not sure which session it was in, but it was kind of amazing because I did learn something. I learned something today, Lou. It was amazing to see that when Disneyland first opened, how many corporate sponsors actually had storefronts on Main Street. I did not realize that there were so many, and not just, this building brought to you by. They were actually doing business out of some of these buildings, and it was an amazing thing to me. So one of them was, what was the name of it? Now I can't remember what it was.
There was a ladies' undergarment. Is that what you just said?
I'm trying to remember the name, because the name was actually really cute.
The Wizard of Bras.
Thank you. Wizard of Bras.
Needless to say, Granny's secrets were well hidden. Why, she'd turn green with envy if she could see the lift today's girl gets from our low-cut Viette. It's designed for wear under a casual sweater or deep-throated shirt. Then for a change of mood, there's the new and intoxicating pink champagne that lends its own sweet shape to you. You see, modern girls have so many fashions to choose from, it takes a wizard to keep them in shape. That's why Hollywood Maxwell designs a bra for every fashion. To see them all, just ask at your favorite store for Hollywood Maxwell, the Wizard of Bras.
And so, of course, that was the thing that just made me go, wow, all right, there's so much more of Disney that I had no idea about. So I think that just some of those little discoveries of those little hidden gems that I didn't know about was a great highlight.
And I think that connects a lot of what we see today, because people say, Walt would have hated this. And we're like, no, this is some of the things that Walt was doing. So it was able to bring some of those connections home for people.
Well, since this was my first trip to Disneyland, I didn't do that many of the events. I pretty much played in the park a lot more than that. But the highlight was pretty much since your man crush on Richard Sherman happened, Becky was gracious enough to bring me to Club 33 for dinner on my first trip out to Disneyland, so thank you. And that's
You're welcome. I did that for you.
Thank you. So that's pretty much, the highlight.
I would say the highlight is seeing the community come together, especially people that I would see normally at Disney World coming to my home here and spending time with them. And I just love the Disney community, and the people are so friendly, and that's the part I enjoy the most.
And do you attribute that to the fact that there's just an event here, or is it what D23 is putting together that you think brings together a lot of diverse Disney communities and Disney enthusiasts?
I think the D23 draws those people, the people that really love Disney, and those are my people. And
you're like Moses. You're like the Moses of the community.
And that's what I enjoy, the community.
I give you these 15, 10 commandments.
I think my highlight was the part we haven't touched on yet, which was the scavenger hunt. I mean, that was just the most fun. It was something that everybody could compete in. It didn't matter if you had lived in the parks for years or if you were a newbie. Everybody could compete on the same level, and just was a fantastic time.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to have to talk about the scavenger hunt. No, highlights for me, there's actually a couple. One was being able to come across a lot of friends I've made in the D23 community, people I've met at other events. We'd literally, because it was so busy, you can't talk to each other between panels. It's once one panel was over, the next one was starting, literally with the next second. So right at the breaks for food and everything, you see people like hunting each other out and grabbing other people. And our group, it was kind of funny because when the panel, before things would start, we started out looking for 6 seats, and then 8 seats, then 10 seats. Then at that point, it's like, okay, we're going to wind up with like 2 full rows if we keep trying to do this. So we kind of scatter out a little bit. Another one of the major highlights, and Becky's going to get a big smile on her face for this, was definitely, honestly, the World of Color event we had Thursday night. The ability, because we saw Imagineers, and it was great, and they had everything planned out, and we knew what was coming up. But to have them come out and show us all the details about World of Color, and to demonstrate how everything works, honestly, was the best part of the weekend.
Yes, Becky was truly the star of this D23 week. But of the events that were presented by D23, I would say my single favorite was every presentation on the history of Disneyland. But my favorite was the World's Fair one with the thing on Ford's Progress Land, and also the scavenger hunt, and also just the camaraderie of being with all of these friends and meeting new friends. It was fabulous.
I'm going to touch on the World of Color thing. Yeah, but I do want to talk about, and I specifically want to say the scavenger hunt and the other announcement that was made about something else that was coming next year as well, separately.
I'm going to help you out, Lou. I really appreciated you being friends with Johnny, so I could see Johnny from Girardi of the Sprites. That was a highlight. Texting my daughter and saying, "Look who I'm at a party with. I'm with Johnny."
Yeah, and what I did want to save as sort of a separate part, because it really was an add-on to the Destination D event. It was an optional thing. Was a scavenger hunt that was held on Sunday from 9 in the morning till about 2 in the afternoon, and not. Well, it almost seemed like everybody did it because there was 575 teams, ranging from individuals to teams of 4, that did an all-day scavenger hunt through Disneyland, Disney's California Adventure, Downtown Disney, and some of the resort hotels as well. And this, I think, for a lot of us, was one of the things that was like, oh yeah, this is something that we have got to do.
Absolutely. I've personally done Goofy's Mystery Tour and Minnie's Moonlit Madness as a cast member for these events. So this kind of thing is scavenger hunts, puzzle solving, riding rides, and looking for clues throughout the parks. This is right up my alley.
And I think we made a great team, you and I.
Absolutely. We went around, and I think we did pretty good.
My dogs are barking, man. My dogs are barking, but we had a really good time. And you obviously, brought up what when you guys saw this about the scavenger hunt, what was your first thought?
I got to do it, flat out. I got hints from it before, about 2 or 3 weeks ahead, and I just sat there going, I want to do this. This is going to be incredible. And then when we started out today, I was overwhelmed.
It's not that you want to do it and win it. You just wanted to do it and just have fun at the event.
Well,
I wanted to win.
All right, some people wanted to win. But the cool thing about this, and I was intimidated because this is not my home park. I'm like a tourist here. I'm looking at maps. I'm like, the Haunted Mansion's in the wrong spot. Why is it? But they did it in I think, a very, very smart way, because although there was an overwhelming number of questions, 300 plus, there were questions that ranged in difficulty. So you didn't have to feel frustrated. There were 1, 5, and 10-point questions. And I got to say, I think that this was really put together and organized. I mean, these guys did some serious preparation and homework for this, and it really went off, I thought, without a hitch.
Oh, definitely. They had experience. They've done it. They've done things like this themselves with inside Disney scavenger hunts, the items like that. But for them to be able to pull this off, literally, in my opinion, in many ways, without a hitch, they had helpers throughout the parks, not necessarily to answer questions for you, but to help keep things moving, help keep you going, was a great help.
Yeah, and it was a very friendly kind of thing. I mean, certainly it was competitive, but you saw teams, looking at each other. It was like 106 degrees today in Disneyland, which, from what I understand, is not normal here. It's normal for Florida, but abnormal for here. And it really, for me, was a great way to cap off a great weekend.
Yeah, and especially for the amount of teams that were competing, it was very well organized.
Yeah, to manage and grade and organize 575 teams, I mean, I don't know what the math is, but I think almost everybody who did Destination D, and some people who didn't do Destination D, came out today just to do the scavenger hunt.
Exactly, and what Doug was saying is correct. 575 teams, but it was over so much area. It was throughout both parks, through all 3 hotels and all of downtown Disney. So everyone was spread out. It was just absolutely overwhelming. There were 330 questions that ranged the gamut. It ran the gamut. It was a lot of observational things, just go out and spot these things, and a lot of puzzle solving too, where you had to go to a bunch of different attractions and things to solve a single question. It was a lot of fun.
Right. So you didn't have to be a Disneyland expert and know all the history. You had to be able to solve puzzles and make up a plan and get a strategy together to put it. And those were some of the things that let the team that won really come in first.
Well, the other thing though is, I mean, when we were allowed to open up the answer book because there's no information, and people would open up the last page and see that final number of 300 plus questions, and then we're like, we've only got 5 hours, and that's when it was like, oh my gosh, what do I actually do? And so it really gave everybody just like this, okay, I got to figure this thing out, gotta go. But what was nice is they gave us the ability to open up the question book about 25 minutes before the actual start, so you can start planning out what you want to do. Because that was one thing Jeffrey said before, is you're going to want to take time and look at it before you start running around, because questions that dealt with things in the same attraction or around that attraction, those questions were not next to each other. They could be a page or two away, so you definitely had to try to plan something out beforehand.
And again, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it was I'm happy they did this at the end, because I was exhausted by the time the 5-hour day was over. But it was a great way to bring a level of interactivity to the event, which I thought was somewhat absent from the first couple of days, where you're sitting there listening. You are really sort of an active part of what was going on. And I bring it up at the end because it is something that's going to come to Walt Disney World's Destination D event, although it's going to be over 2 days. And it's going to be 2 days before the seminar events begin. So they're going to kind of flip-flop it, try it that way. I think that's going to be very interesting because of the dynamic of the Walt Disney World guests and the Walt Disney World enthusiasts. 2 days, there's 4 parks, there's like 900 resorts. It's a big space, so it's going to be curiouser and curiouser to see how they do it. And I kept this out separate because one of the other announcements when there was the D23 Expo 2011 sneak peek was another level of interactivity that they're bringing to that event as well, and that is the Trivia Challenge. And they sort of gave us a sneak peek of that by having a mini Trivia Challenge here, and they're going to have a number of rounds of events during the day and have semifinals and finals, and they sort of did a little, and I think a smart move on their part, sort of a test run to see how it worked, getting ready for the Expo next year. How do you think that changes, or how do you think that adds to the dynamic of the Expo?
That's a really good question, Lou.
that means Becky doesn't know how to answer. So
it's going to be very interesting because it'll actually make a lot of us D23 members, the presentation, or we'll be up on stage, doing that. So that's going to be quite interesting dynamic.
You're going to have to study for the expo next year.
Now, see, those questions, the ones that those were not hard or easy. Those were very, very hard. There were hard balls being thrown there. I got through 1 or 2 of the questions, and then 3 or 4 that I was looking at people around me, and they were all like shaking their heads like, I have no idea. So it's going to take some pretty big trivia people to win this one, right, Lou?
And I think it's going to appeal to those people that do love the parks and they do love the history and want a chance to sort of show off their stuff and be a part of the event, not just as a guest and attendee.
Oh, yeah. One thing, though, that we saw, the graphic they gave for the scavenger hunt, it gave you the biggest hint and biggest clue to help you out with it. Memorize Dave Smith's Encyclopedia A to Z of Disney.
Although I would, for the coming to Walt Disney World, there's a couple of books and audio guides I would recommend as well, but I'm biased to say the least. So, and yeah, look, and I got to give huge props, and did I just say props? I want to give huge credit to Henry Work from Touring Plans and his team, who came in first. And Henry's so sneaky because he's like, I don't know, we did all right. He's taking his bib off, and look, I said it in my tweet, man. It shows Touring Plans work. He had his strategy down, and it shows it's not about what you know about Disneyland. It's how to approach the parks. And, of course, huge monster credit also goes to my teammate, Scott Otis, who single-handedly brought us in at 6th place.
Well, both of you.
Shucks. I take 50.5% credit of this. You were great, too.
Well, it was a lot of fun throughout the whole thing, and that's what it was. It wasn't... you want to do well and see how well that you do, but we were just having such a good time doing it, and I think all the teams seem to do that, and that's why I think this was it should be a vital part of Destination D and the Expo going forward.
Yeah, I thought that it was amazing to see everybody in the energy. Too bad it was so hot. I think if it was about 15 or 20 degrees lower, everyone would have been bouncing off the walls when they came back. But to see the faces, a little tired, but yet everyone was so excited and had so much fun. And I heard nothing but really positive feedback on the event and the bonding and a little bit of competition. But yet some people were saying that they really didn't feel it was a competition against each other. It was more against the competition of the clock. So I hope that they keep this tradition going.
Yeah, and again, I think we all agree that I think it was a great event. It was very well done, especially for the first time. But I wanted to sort of leave you by asking you one question, and that is, if you could, and you can sort of get the ear of D23, what would you like to see? What didn't you see this year that you'd like to see maybe coming next year?
That is a difficult question because it was just great how they did it. Obviously, we're going to see things at Walt Disney World that's going to be focused, I hope, on the creation of the park, more the history of how it came about, even the attractions they considered that they didn't even bother to put in at the time. Because I almost can guarantee Thunder Mesa is going to have a big presentation right there, and they're going to have everybody just literally latched onto that.
I wonder how many times people are going to go, bring back Horizons, bring back Dreamfinder in Walt Disney World next year. So
I'd like to see just a little bit of a change in the schedule, just even a little bit of a break up in there. It sounds like it might be a little bit more days, hopefully. Something to add a little social piece to it, maybe not a lot, not trying to make it Expo, but trying to give it something that allows us to get up out of our chairs every now and then would be nice.
I don't even need to ask you if you're all planning on going to both Destination D and the Expo next year. I think the general consensus is yes. And I think we saw people coming out were saying, okay, Becky, when can we start booking rooms? What are the dates? What do you know? So I think it's a testament to how well this event was run.
And I will tell you, as soon as we know the dates, we're going to have a package and we're going to have an event. So watch for it.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for helping to make this a great event, not just Destination D, but a great trip out to Disneyland. So, and I invite anybody who's listening, if you attended Destination D, to post your comments in this week's show notes, either about what you thought about the event, what you'd like to see maybe changed. And if you didn't come out, what do you think? Do you think that you Are you kicking yourself that you missed something, or are you looking forward to maybe coming to what's in Walt Disney World in 2011? Again, you can post in the comments over at WDWRadio.com. Everybody, I want to say thank you once again, and certainly I will see you in Walt Disney World.
And thank you for co-hosting this wonderful event on Thursday, because without you, I would not have been able to pull it off. And it was my inaugural event for Disneyland. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks so much for taking the time and tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our recap of Destination D, and hopefully this will maybe inspire you to come to next year's Destination D event, Spring 2011 in Walt Disney World, and the D23 Expo in August 2011 in Anaheim, California. Big thanks go out to my friends and guests, Scott Otis, Jeremy Marks, Becky Mankin, Doug, Lee, and Lori, and all of our friends over at D23. Whether we've met before or for the first time, I really appreciate you making this trip so fun and memorable for me. A couple of other quick thanks. Thanks to Bill Rogers, the voice of Disneyland, for the intro bumper, and to my friends Paul Anderson, Tim O'Day, John Tartaglia, Richard Sherman, and Dave Smith for really helping out and making this such an incredible event. In this week's show notes over at WDWRadio.com, I'll post some of my photos as well as links to some of the other photo streams from some of our friends so you can get an idea of exactly what was going on over at D23. While you're there, don't forget to check out the blogs, photo galleries, discussion forums, videos, and so much more, as well as the WDW Radio shop, where you can get signed copies of my Walt Disney World trivia books and my audio guides to Walt Disney World on CD and download. Liberty Square and Toontown have just been released, and you can also get Main Street, Adventureland, and Fantasy as well. You can also download the free WDW Radio iPhone app, subscribe to our newsletter, and find out all the different ways to connect with me and the show through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn friend feed, and so much more. While you're there or in iTunes, don't forget you can also go back and check out older episodes of the show, going right back to the very first episode. Many of them are evergreen and include things like exclusive interviews and looks at current and former Walt Disney World attractions, so much more. I think you'll probably find something in there that you like, especially if you're a new listener. Speaking of Disney events, just a quick reminder about some upcoming events, including our annual walkabout during the Food and Wine Festival. That's Friday, October 1st, also Walt Disney World's birthday. We're going to meet up around 2:30 as you cross over the bridge from Future World into World Showcase. From there, we will wander the promenade, sampling from the food and wine pavilions, recording for the show. If you can't make it that day, come by the next morning for breakfast on the boardwalk for our meet of the month. That'll be Saturday at 9:30 a.m. We're going to meet over at the Boardwalk Bakery. This way, if you don't have a park ticket, you can come by, join us, have a little bit of breakfast, and then we'll probably stroll over to Epcot around 11:30 or so. The following weekend, also during the Food and Wine Festival, the Swan and Dolphin is holding their first annual Food and Wine Classic, October 8th and 9th, starting at 4:30 p.m. at the Causeway in between the Swan and the Dolphin. There are beverage seminars, tasting stations, wine blending, sake, beer, champagne demonstrations, and so much more. And of course, you get to sample food from places like Todd English's Blue Zoo, Shula's, Il Molino, Kimonos, and so much more. You can get day of event only tickets, or you can purchase a la carte sampling tickets for about $2 per ticket, or a booklet of tickets for $45. For more information, visit this week's show notes or the homepage of WDWRadio.com. There you'll find a link directly to more information about the Swan and Dolphin Food and Wine Classic. I'm still working on dates for November and December's meets of the month, but looking forward to 2011, don't forget we have the WDW Radio Cruise aboard the Disney Dream, February 27th. There is now additional availability as Disney has released additional inside staterooms. So if you're looking to join us, want to maybe get one of those inside staterooms, there are a limited number of available on the Disney Dream. For more information and a free, no-obligation quote, visit wdwradiocruise.com. And if you're coming on the cruise, want to get some cruise logo gear, we do have a link to the Cafe Press store right on that page as well. I haven't done a contest in a few weeks, and that means I'm probably getting ready to call a random listener. So if you want a chance to play Listener Fact or Fiction, get on the air, answer some true or false trivia questions about Walt Disney World, email me at factorfiction@wdwradio.com. Be sure to include your name and your phone number. You never know if you might be the one that I call to play next. Or if you have a question that you want answered on the air, you can email me at lou@wdwradio.com. Or if you want to be heard on the air, call the toll-free voicemail line anytime at 888-703-2171. Be sure and stay tuned to the show for some announcements about some upcoming projects and ideas that I've been working on. Best way to stay connected, though, is through Twitter. It's twitter.com/Lou Mongello and facebook.com/WDW Radio. Again, because of Facebook's imposed limit, I can't accept any friend requests, but I do post all of my updates on the WDW Radio page. Those are also the best ways to find out about the next WDW Radio live video broadcast and chat that'll be coming up very, very soon. And again, big thanks to all the box people that joined us for Destination D. Happy to bring the meat of the month and some ride-throughs and some pretty special things that took place over in the Enchanted Tiki Room. Big thanks to the world-famous Andrew over at the Tiki Room for making that happen for us. Again, to everybody that joined us for 5 minutes or the entire few hours at Disneyland, thank you so much to the box people. Really love you guys. Appreciate you tuning in. As always, my friends, if you like the show, all I ask is that you please help spread the word. Let others know about it. Tweet out that you're listening or share the link to the show over on Facebook. And if you can, please come by, review the show or the free WDW Radio iPhone app over in iTunes. And of course, my friends, and the last couple of weeks have really proved that you guys are my friends, whether we have met or not. Thank you so much for taking the time and tuning in this and every week. So until next time, I want you to take that first step towards pursuing your passion and always keep moving forward. Get inspired, get motivated, don't ever give up. You can do anything you put your mind to. And most of all, I hope you guys have a great week this week. Thanks again for tuning in. See ya.
Hey Lou, this is Mary Jo Collins. I was just calling to say thank you so much for all of your updates from Destination D. Sound amazing. I hope that I will get to attend the Destination D next spring in Walt Disney World. That would be a real treat. Anyway, I wanted to make a personal shout out to someone. I hope he's listening. I heard that he's a big fan of the show, and that is John Fertaglia. If you are listening, we want to invite you to join us on the cruise in February. It would be a lot of fun, and we promise that we are good people. Anyway, Lou, thank you so much, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, Lou and WDW Radio community. This is Trista. Tom and I just came back from our Disneyland trip, and by just, I mean a week ago, but it's been so crazy. I'm really excited to hear the show about Destination D. We were sad that we missed it, but we had such a wonderful, wonderful trip. We met up with fellow listener Scott Otis out there, and he got us a ride on the Lily Bell, and we all went on there, and that was wonderful. And then, goodness gracious, we saw World of Color twice and cried, and Fantasmic twice and cried, and Remember Dreams Come True and cried. We stopped at the Walt Disney Family Museum and cried. So you're noticing a theme, but it was happy. It was a happy trip. We had a great time. Top highlight, Push the Talking Trash Can sang Happy Birthday to Tom in Tomorrowland, and that was fabulous. I just posted it on your Facebook, the WDW Radio Facebook, so people can see. My brother-in-law caught some of it on video. It was just so much fun. Just all these really fun little highlights that happened that were just a Disney geek dream come true, running into just the right people, meeting Disney legends and current Imagineers. We wrapped up with a dinner about in the Disneyland Grand Ballroom, the Disney Hotel, and in the Grand Ballroom there, and got to meet and talk to Exitencio and Alice Davis, Floyd Norman, our good friend Bob Gurr again, got all their autographs, got to talk to them, hear stories from them. It was just magical. It was just amazing. So still coming down off the high, but I just wanted to let everyone know how our trip went. A lot of people wanted to know, so I thought this would be the best way to tell you. Tom was surprised by everything, all the things that were surprised, for him, he just absolutely loved. So I really encourage anybody, if you are a Disney fan and you have not been to Disneyland because you live far away or because you think it's too small or whatever you think, you really need to go and make it a trip that really centers around history and the man, Walt Disney, because that's what we did, and it was just unforgettable. So love you all in that great big Disney community out there, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, Lou. This is Henry, the guy who gave you the chocolate macadamia nuts. Just got out of Destination 55. Really enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it too. And I'll see you later. Aloha.
Hey, Lou. It's Canadian Box Guy here, Bob from Ottawa. And I was just listening to the podcast with Dave Smith, and I just wanted to call in and say it was great hearing Dave Smith talk. And my wife, Tina, and myself were lucky enough to be able to go on the tour in the archives and meet Dave. And when we were dropping your name to him and talking about that same story, you talked about the bird once before, he started doing the exact same thing, picking up the little bird there and making it chirp and stuff like that. So it was great to hear that, and it was just an awesome time meeting him as well. So just wanted to call in and say that, how much I enjoyed listening to that, and I'm sure Tina, when she gets around to listening to it, she'll do the same thing. So hope all is well, and looking forward to seeing everyone on the cruise in, I think, about 150 days. So not that we're counting or anything, but keep up the great work, and looking forward to seeing everybody. Bye.
Hey Lou, this is John calling from Salt Lake City, Utah. I was just calling, first of all, to tell you thank you for all your great work. I know, like so many others, your podcast just brings me so much happiness each week. I also just wanted to give a shout-out to my mom and my dad and my sister Sarah, and I just wanted to tell them that they're just the absolute best. They're so supportive of my Disney obsession, if you will, and they always let me drag them to the Disney parks each year. I love you guys. Once again, Lou, just keep up the great work. I think I speak on behalf of all Disney fans when I say that you are truly a Disney legend, and you need to get that award soon. But anyway, I hope you have a magical day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.